Thank you so much for inviting us, Chantal and Candice and Valerie. Really happy to be here. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about our case example. So this is a beautiful collaboration between the Strategy for Patient-Oriented Research Evidence Alliance, the SPOR Evidence Alliance, with COVID End. And we were both members of each of those organizations, Andrea and I, and recognized the need for the patient and public involvement in COVID-19 rapid reviews. And in 2020, quickly mobilized to provide those opportunities for patients and what we called in COVID and citizen partners in the production of rapid reviews. And that was a pretty tall order. It was a bit frightening at times. We didn't really know how we were going to actually do it, but we managed to do it. And we brought together a group of willing Canadians, and to note, most of whom had never been engaged in evidence synthesis products, and some who were engaging like as public partners for the first time. But given the nature of the questions with the pandemic, they were often questions that didn't just go to patients, but to all members of the public. I'll stop there and see if Andrea wants to add to that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much, Maureen. Yeah, so we've been working on engaging patient and public partners in all of our activities through the SPOR Evidence Alliance. But the most challenging activity is rapid reviews, and that's just because of the demanding timelines. You know, trying to, and the SPOR Evidence Alliance, what we do is we answer requests from policy decision makers, and we also have a mechanism where patients and public partners can submit requests. But for the rapid reviews that were coming in with COVID, those ones were coming in mostly from policy decision-making organizations, and some of them also have never engaged with patient and public partners on the team. So we had to do a bit of capacity building with the research teams, you know, to get them ready. And, you know, a big enabler was that in Canada, we had the infrastructure with the SPOR Evidence Alliance, and we had the ongoing funding. So as a CIHR funded entity. So we were lucky in that we had that, and we had, you know, 35 teams across Canada ready to go at any point in time to quickly mobilize. And we also had some patient partners who we had been engaging with and had a lot of experience. But as Maureen said, you know, we needed more than the few that we had been, you know, working with when the pandemic hit us. And so some of the enablers would be providing training to the rapid review teams across Canada, having this pre-existing structure, providing capacity building to the patient and public partners, as well as providing capacity building to the policy decision makers, and really trying to have a culture shift here in Canada so that people realize the importance of patient partners engaging on these projects and the value of their lived experience that they bring to these projects. So one thing that was hugely successful was the training that we provided to the patient and public partners. And this was actually led by Maureen. So Maureen, did you want to talk a little bit about the training that you provided and how that went?
Sure. But before I do that, I wanted to just say, you know, it came about because we had two champions from the researcher side. So we had Andrea Trico and we had François-Pierre Gauvin from the McMaster Health Forum, and who were committed to doing this, and then who opened the door and brought me in as a patient partner. So I'm a Cochrane consumer. I had participated in systematic reviews at the co-production level, like at a very high level, involved from the beginning to the end. And I was part of the Priority 3 rapid review project with Evidence Synthesis Ireland, but I had never been on a rapid review, but I had that systematic review experience. So the fact that, you know, to make it happen, you have to have champions on all sides. So you have to have champions on the researcher side, that's what we had in Andrea and Francois Pierre and John Lavis and Jeremy Grimshaw, who were the head of COVID, who were supporting all this. And then if you can find a champion from the patient partner side, then you've really got a nice combination, because you're just really basically the patient partner is bridging that gap between the people who have never done it, the patient and public partners, and then the researchers. So that's what happened there. So the short story about the course is that Andrea and her group at the Spore Evidence Alliance decided that they would like to offer this course. It was going to be a 10-hour course, and brought two patient partners on, Janet Gunderson and me, and said, would you like to advise us on this course? Wow. We said, great. We had the first meeting and we said, yeah, maybe this won't work. We had both done these kind of courses before that were more or less geared more for researchers. And they just really embraced the changes that we wanted to make and the suggestions that we wanted to make, and really let us co-lead with all of the expertise of Andrea's staff and everything that they contributed also. But they gave us a huge role, probably more than what they had anticipated at the beginning. So we did the first course, which was in May 2021. And that was a 10-hour online course delivered over 3 weeks. And then that was just on rapid reviews, patient engagement in patient and public engagement in rapid reviews. We had 24 people who attended, some from the Spore Evidence Alliance and some from COVID. So that was absolutely great. And we were able to start placing them right away on teams, working with different teams. And then we followed up in 2022 course, about 15 hours. And that one was really on a variety of knowledge synthesis products. So we expanded to include more products like scoping reviews and meta-analysis and reviews of reviews. I think we picked 4 altogether. So we did this kind of extensive training that was really highly evaluated by the participants and gave them the confidence to join the teams, but also importantly to Janet and I, set a realistic expectation of what was going to happen when they joined a rapid review. Because sometimes, understanding the expectations and the challenges on all sides really makes for, a really engagement that's just more realistic, that you kind of know what to expect and you know what some of the challenges are and some of the limitations in a rapid review environment. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, that's great, Maureen. So thank you. And Maureen did a fantastic job at co-leading that course. And we had really positive feedback on that course. And we are working on a publication of the two years. So we are still working on that, Maureen. That will come out because it was quite an innovative way of running it. And the interesting thing was that not only were the patient and public partners trained up, they had hands-on experience. So all 47 participants across the 2 cohorts have engaged in, was it 35 rapid reviews? I can't remember the exact number. So they've all been able to have hands-on experience with rapid reviews. And so oftentimes researchers, say that, well, we don't have enough time to engage on rapid reviews, or, I even hear that from systematic reviews, but there are models and it can happen. And there are ways to make it work. So just to give you, some statistics here. So with the Spore Evidence Alliance, we've completed since 2018, 207 rapid reviews. And we've had 208 patient partners engaged across 80 of those rapid reviews. And those were completed by 25 different teams across Canada. We do have a team in Colombia with Yvonne Flores. I don't know if he's here today or will be listening in. So we do have one non-Canadian team there, and he's been actively involved in the work we do. In terms of COVID rapid reviews, so we completed 143 rapid reviews on COVID since 2018, and 125 patients have been engaged across 60 of those reviews, and those were completed by 20 teams. And then we have these uber fast rapid reviews those are done within 5 to 10 business days. So we've completed 45 of those. And 14 patient partners were engaged across 4 of the reviews. So you do see like the numbers dropping off, especially with the uber fast ones. But just to say that it is possible, and that we have seen over time since 2018 that the proportion of all of our knowledge synthesis products, including rapid reviews, the proportion that have engaged patient and public partners have increased. And part of this is because of the amazing work that Maureen has done on the course that she's done. Also, Maureen developed this really nice little one-pager that the research teams can fill out, and it's available on our website. So it allows us to quickly match patient partners to a research team. So the research team fills out the form, and then we can circulate that to all of our patient and public partners, and then they can volunteer and say, oh, I'm really interested in engaging in that. So having these mechanisms in place really facilitates this process and really allows us to, have meaningful relationships and meaningful projects getting completed. I'm not sure, Maureen, if there was anything else that we wanted to share, or if Candace, if you wanted to ask us any specific questions.
I have several questions, but I'll let Maureen, if you have anything else to say, and then I can jump in and ask a few.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Andrew was saying about that form the template that we would give out to the researchers. One of the reasons that we did it was we were hearing, we can't people won't possibly want to do this. It's so quick. We only have 2 weeks. And my answer to that was, don't assume that people don't want to do this. Ask them, be transparent and say, we only have 2 weeks. I might only give you 24 hours notice for you to respond to something. Are you available and are you willing to do this? And surprisingly, a lot of people said yes. We were in a pandemic. They wanted to be part of the solution. They wanted to help. They felt helpless in a lot of situations. They thought it was important work, and people did want to do it, and they did sign up. And if you weren't available and you couldn't meet those timelines, then don't sign up, and that was, wait for the next one to come along. Maybe the next one is over 3 months. So it was interesting. And just the other big challenge that I wanted to point out was just, we talk a lot about building trust, and it's difficult to build trust over a rapid review, but there's small things that you can do along the way. We did have living evidence synthesis. That was a little bit easier. The same team would come back, 2 months later or a month later, and they would get to know each other. That was something that was quite that was easier to build trust with. But there are other ways to build trust, and like by being transparent, by meeting with the team, by stating that everyone's working quickly, what your own challenges are, and just being honest about it. When we did the evaluation, when one of our focus group, we tend to focus group partners said, why didn't the team just tell us it was the first time they were engaging with patient partners? Oh, it would have cut them some slack. So many times it was the first time. They had never done this. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't say that. Like, researchers, they can just say it transparently and just be honest and say, I've never done this before. We're going to learn with you, and let's embark on this journey together and learn from each other. And I think that was a big lesson that we certainly had as far as us organizing it. Like, we learned all the way through, and we just kept changing things and adapting to that changing situation. And I think that was really interesting that people said, I had no idea that you had never done this before. And and it's also exciting for partners to be doing something that's innovative. That's exciting to know that, we're going into an area where we didn't normally have any kind of input. So if you're starting out and you're working with a team, my advice to you is tell them that this is new for you, and they'll be really supportive. They'll be even more supportive of you. So stop there.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. I have about 4 minutes, so I'm really going to give you a loaded question, multiple questions in one. So hopefully you can bear with me. I'm curious how you identify your patient and public partners, and within that, do you in the paper, you describe knowledge users as clinicians, professional associations, healthcare policymakers, patients, caregivers, patient groups, government agencies, and the public. Do you always need all of these? And if so, how do you recruit, all of those? And last, related, do you have a terms of reference for all these different kind of groups of the patients and partners? I'll leave it at that because I think that's loaded enough, but we'll see if we have time for more. Thanks.
Do you want me to start, Maureen? Yeah, so that's a great questions with an S, Candace, in there. Yeah, I mean, for all of our projects with the Spore Evidence Alliance, on every single project, we try to have a patient and public partner, at least one, if not two or more. We try to have clinicians or content expertise on it, policy decision makers, because many of our questions come from policy decision makers. We also try to have trainees on those projects as well. And our goal is to co-create a project together. So it's moving away from the researcher in the ivory tower having all the answers, and really this is a service that we're providing to society, and we're all working together and co-creating this project. So we have several examples where we have all of those groups listed as co-authors on the report, and then we actually move on and try to publish our rapid reviews as well. So on the publication. So, and we even have case examples where, we did a rapid review and network meta-analysis, believe it or not, on COVID rapid antigen testing that was led by Dr. Veronicki. And we have the Ministry of Thailand as co-authors on it. We have 2 patient partner co-authors on it. We have Public Health Agency of Canada, as well as Health Canada, all as, decision makers. And we also have trainees on it as well. So that's a really nice case example of where, we're able to have co-authorship of multiple groups. And in terms of reference, we don't have that for the specific roles, but what we do is we do clearly elaborate and explain what everyone's role is on the project. And we have a lot of resources for that, especially when it comes to the patient and public partners, what their roles are. And these are co-created resources all on the Spore Evidence Alliance website that tells you what your role is. And part of that is when you have that first kickoff meeting with the research entire team, including all your knowledge users on there, you kind of try to elaborate and say, this is going to be what your roles are and what your tasks are, and just to make sure that you have productive engagement. And Maureen, I don't know if you wanted to add to that answer.
No, I'm good. I only took care of the patient and public, and we were looking for lived experience, Candace. So depending on what the review was, you lived experience in that area. And we were basically willing to onboard and train anyone who really wanted to do it and who was willing to, learn the basics and come on to an onboarding meeting. And same thing for the researchers. I can't tell you how many times I met with teams individually, just to talk to them a little bit about what it would be like to engage with patient and public partners.
Yeah, so just one thing, Candace, that may not come through in our paper is the incredible amount of resources and time and energy. You have to have enthusiastic people. You have to have coaches. So senior level patient and public partners like Maureen. And Maureen is giving coaching not only to the research team, not only to the patient and public partners, but to the research teams. And then on my side as a researcher, I'm giving coaching and training to the research teams, working with Maureen and helping, with the patient and public engagement piece, and then also all of the capacity building and all of the culture shifting that needs to be done with the policy decision makers, so that time doesn't really come through in a publication and doesn't really come through in all the reports that are listed on our website.
Great, thank you. I mean, I could ask you questions for another hour, but I know we need to get to the wrap up and the question and answer period for the other participants. So thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Valerie, I believe.
Thanks so much, Candace.
Sorry, Valerie.
Yeah, I
Valerie,
think
so
Chantel has some pieces to do here.
yeah, just very quickly, because we really want to get to questions. So just to say that thanks to some of the efforts of Maureen and others, Cochrane now has a co-production methods group. And as well, there's some additional resources here around some initiatives happening within Cochrane. So involving people and the active project. So just encourage folks to check those out as well. And then again, we have a poll question, but I actually think we should get to some actual questions. So I will stop here, and Valerie, please feel free to open up the chat to scour the chat and put some questions out there.
Thank you. So several people have asked questions in the chat. Let's go ahead and start with this one. And this is really for Maureen and Andrea, but Chantel, you should feel free to pop in here. Of all the rapid reviews that you've conducted, how many have reached publication, especially during the pandemic response? So we know that not all rapid reviews ever get published. They are designed for a specific need at a specific time. So can you comment on publication?
So I would say that all of our rapid reviews have been publicly posted on our website. So they're all there. And for every rapid review, you can see, this is through the SPOR Evidence Alliance, you can see the patient partners that were involved. So Maureen helped us with that. We also have an executive summary in there where we have like the patient's interpretation of the evidence as well. These are like small little innovations that we are trying to do to bring the patient's voice as close to policy decision-making as possible. We do try to publish everything that so above and beyond posting the report and the one pager, and we also ask our patient partners to write a lay summary for all of our projects. All of that is publicly available on our website. And then, we go ahead and we also publish, try to publish those rapid reviews as well. I would have to look in my database to see how many of them go on to like a peer-reviewed publication. But there would be a percentage of those that would go forward. For me personally, all the rapid reviews that I've been engaged with, we push for publication. But I know that that's not, what everyone does. So I'd have to look up the statistics, but all that to be said, all of our rapid reviews are publicly posted on our website regardless.
Great. Chantel, Maureen, any other comments around that? Okay. We have a really interesting, I think, thought question here on how you go about assessing the relevance of knowledge users. Is it in terms of representativity or skills or input or other metrics?
I can take a quick stab at it. From my perspective, as a patient and citizen partner, it's often challenging to the research team to think in a different way about something, to consider another perspective. So often the scope of a rapid review is very defined and you can't, but sometimes you may ask a question or you may bring something up that will get them thinking about something else. And maybe that's going to inform future work or future questions. But just during the whole review, to just have a what if or what about this group of people, and to just challenge the thinking to sometimes think in a different way. I think if a patient partner has done that, they've done their job. Like, and sometimes that challenging, you can see it right in the rapid review. It's very evident, and sometimes it's not as evident, but it might come out later in future work. So I think that, it's difficult to measure the actual impact, but I think part of the important impact is just about thinking, and about thinking about different knowledge users who are going to use the actual results of the.
That's super, Maureen. Thank you. Andrea, Chantal, Candace, other comments to that question?
So sorry, just to go back to the previous question about number of publications for the Spore Evidence Alliance, we've completed 207 rapid reviews since 2018. I'm just looking at my database, and we've published 27 of those rapid reviews. So you're looking at a little bit more than a 10%, or close to a 10% of the rapid reviews being published. Yeah, so the question is trying to find knowledge users, the relevant ones. So I agree with everything that Maureen said. And then we also try to do an evaluation in particular of our engagement of patient public engagement. So we'll often use, like, there's different tools, validated tools, like the peers tool. That's a patient engagement in research tool. And then there's also a PEATS tool as well. So we'll evaluate our patient engagement on an ongoing basis in the hopes of improving it. So we kind of have this continuous quality improvement design where, we're always trying to improve our patient engagement and evaluate it on an ongoing basis.
And I would just add, there's probably some metrics that you can't capture in some of those tools. And I think some of the more important outcomes are the relationships that you've built with your fellow knowledge users. And I think also future collaborations that come out of getting knowledge users involved are also two important metrics that may not get captured, but that should be captured in some fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So not everything that matters can be counted, right? So we've got a question here around involvement of knowledge users relative to data analysis. And when you involve them in data analysis, and whether there was any work in preparing the research data for them and how that might have been done.
So maybe I'll go first, Maureen and Chantal. Yeah, so we typically don't ask our knowledge users to engage to do, meta-analysis or network meta-analysis if we're talking about that kind of analysis. So typically that would not be a role that we would ask them to help with. So their role in terms of the data would be more like a data interpretation type of role. So we have completed the analysis, has been done by experts who have training in doing that. And then, we would be asking the patient and public partner, like, what's your take on these results? Or the policy decision maker, what's your take? Or from a clinician perspective or healthcare provider perspective or content expert perspective, what do these results mean to you? Are they important? Are they not? Can you contextualize them for us? So that's more of the role that we would have versus asking them to actually do the data analysis per se. And I'm not sure if Chantal or Maureen, if you had different experiences than that.
No, Andrew, that's very similar to what I've been involved with in the past, albeit full integration into a rapid review process could include that, although I've not been involved in something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just say that occasionally I've had participants who were really sophisticated in that realm, and they were really actively involved in hard looking at the numbers. Following on from that, let me ask first to Chantel, do you think that there's a phase of the rapid review that should always include patient partner involvement, such as developing the research question or other particular phases?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would like to see knowledge users involved in the earlier phases. I don't think it happens enough. I really think it's important that we're asking questions that are important to them. We're looking at outcomes that are important to them. So I think that's where I'd like to see if I had to pick, I'd like to see more concentrated effort of knowledge users at that phase of the process, albeit it's important to have them involved in all phases. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Any other comments, Maureen, Andrea, Candace? It's a hard question.
Yeah, no, thanks, Val.
I think it's really important at the end too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to say that, with the Spore Evidence Alliance, all of our projects have to come from a policy decision maker or has to come from a patient or public partner. So policy decision makers, those ones, they don't go through a priority setting exercise. But when we have topics that come in from patient and public partners, so for example, we had about 110 or 111, I believe, topics that came from patient and public partners through social media campaign and through networks and whatnot. Then we went through a rapid priority setting process for those, and we chose 23 projects to proceed. And for those, the patient and public partners actually co-lead the project. And we also invite other knowledge users like policy decision makers and clinicians and trainees and researchers to co-create these projects together. So it is quite innovative. And the majority of these projects are knowledge synthesis projects, but some of them are knowledge translation as well. But just to say, it is a different way of doing this work, where actually the patient and public partner, they actually came up with the idea, and then we prioritized it and said, this is like such an impactful idea that it needs to proceed. And then they are engaged in deciding on what research team that they collaborate with, and they actually co-lead the project from start to finish. So we have those examples of very intensive engagement, in particular from patient and public partners, which is a different way of doing research.
Great. So we're coming to the end of our time, and I'm going to hand this back to Chantel for wrapping up. There is a question in the chat about whether the recording will be available, and it certainly will in a few days. And Dario has put the link in there where it will be posted. So back to you, Chantel, and thank you all for joining us. This panel has been absolutely terrific.
That's great. Thanks so much, Val. Thank you, Maureen, Andrea, Candace. I don't think we're going to have time for this poll question. So we also had some additional slides which will be shared with you. So you'll get to take a look at them at the end. There's just a few summary slides. But I think our bottom line is it might be a difficult thing to do in terms of involving knowledge users in rapid reviews. But, just do it. Just try it. Take that first step, and there are some resources out there for you.